You were like, well, I had a rough shift. I had to do this, and this with patients. And I had to go drive all the way to Nashville and come back at 3 a.m. in the morning in the ambulance. And I'm like, I stayed up with a screaming baby all night. Excuse me, I'm tired too. I'm Dayna.
And I'm Tony.
And this is Responding Together.
So let's talk about expectations we didn't know we had.
So before marriage, we had our own expectations. We brought in a lot of preconceived ideas of what marriage was going to be like, and kind of what we hope to get out of marriage and from each other, these expectations. And I remember talking about it in our premarital counseling. I think we've mentioned this before in a previous podcast, that we kind of laid out all of our pre-marriage expectations for each other. And we recently looked back on those, and I think we just kind of laughed at our younger 20 years ago selves, and we're like, what were we thinking? Because there was a lot that we just didn't think about when it came to communicating in marriage. And one of the things I tell the kids all the time when we're having a conversation with them is that I can't read your mind. You have to use your words to tell me what's going on.
Use your words.
Use your words. I'm not inside your head. And I think we've said that to each other from time to time, where it's been like, I'm not inside your head. Can you explain your thought process here, or what's going on, or why you're upset with me? Or, and I think we had some pretty knockout, drag out disagreements early on in marriage, simply because we had expectations and ideas. And I know a lot of times as a woman, I will have a conversation in my head with you, thinking that I actually had the said conversation.
I don't understand that, but okay.
And you're like, what are you talking about?
Yep.
So, going into marriage, some of the things that we kind of expected were that, I expected that you were going to be home. This was also pre...
You're funny.
I know. This was pre-EMS too, because we didn't start out... You kind of took a little bit of a break when we got married, just because you had to gain reciprocity and everything. So I expected that when you started in this career field, you'd be home for dinner. You'd work your day shift and you'd be home for dinner, and we'd get to have dinner together as a family, because that's how I grew up, where we sat down to dinner every night together. And that, I think, now happens far less. We try to make it a priority for once a week that the kids are home.
Yeah.
And
been a little crazy lately.
It has been. And we sit down and we do dinner together. But I think, one of those expectations was that, I was going to, make sure that dinner was on the table when you got home. But here's the thing. You worked at a hospital that was an hour away, and you would get off, you would work either 6 to 6 or 7 to 7. So by the time you got home, it was 8 o'clock.
Yep.
So you were, obviously when we just had little babies around, it wasn't that big of a deal that, you and I would do dinner late. I'd feed the kids, and, by the time that you were getting rolling in through the door, they were, saying good night to dad. And then you and I would do a late dinner, or something, watch a show or whatever. And, I think we both had these expectations going in that we thought, it was all going to be rainbows and sunshine and everything was going to be great. And I remember being really disappointed the first time that the schedule really got adjusted, because there was a couple times when you were working at the hospital that it was more of like a self-set schedule.
It was a self-schedule, but it was based on seniority too.
Right. So I remember we tried to really work around making sure that your schedule worked around what our schedule was, and just being really disappointed, because that expectation was, I was going to have my teammate, my partner to hang out with and do the things outside of work. And that just didn't always happen.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, and also during that time, and I think we talked about this. Well, we talked about it recently, whether it was on the last podcast or not, where we didn't have family nearby.
right.
So it was us,
Mm-hmm.
those of our college friends that were still around, and then the church that we were newly attending.
Mm-hmm.
So, we didn't have a local support system very well established.
Yeah.
So it really did fall on, each of us
Yeah.
for that.
I think our expectations going into just what our day to day was going to look like, we didn't really have an idea of what that was going to look like when we first got married. Who was going to do what for housework, who was, I was at home at the time, so I didn't have a job when you were, because we had our oldest pretty quick. We were married. She was born 11 months into our marriage.
Yep.
And so
10 months in June.
Oh yeah, 10 months. 10 months. She was born 10 months into our marriage. So we didn't really have that time together
Nope.
prior to having a baby. And so I didn't work because I was at home with her. So I was the main one taking care of what was going on in the house. So, I mean, I think we took on more traditional roles at that point in time. I think now we gravitate more to, we split kind of everything. Like if you see dishes that need to be done, you help recruit a kid to do them, or you do them. Or if I see dishes that need to be done, I get them done or help recruit a kid to do them.
Well, we also have older children, so they're able to
yes.
do a whole lot more
yes.
than in those.
They're able to
participate
in maintaining the house.
It didn't
and
fall completely on both of us,
right?
Or one of us, depending.
Right, and I remember that being so frustrating because I felt like everything fell on me in the beginning, as far as like taking care of the kids, because you would come home exhausted. Even on your days off, you were catching up because you started out on day shift, but then you switched to night shift. So sleep, the expectation around sleep too was kind of, I mean, I think that's one of the things that surprised me as a first responder spouse, is that my expectation was if you got sleep on shift and you didn't have any calls that you had to go on, which did happen from time to time. It wasn't like you were up all night. You did have nights where you did get sleep, not restful sleep as you would call it, because you were still, in a state of readiness. But
and even in the earlier years, I didn't know what that was about. I realized that as I gained some more experience, but initially I didn't,
right.
I didn't know.
Right. Well, and my expectation was that if you got sleep on shift, you wouldn't necessarily need to sleep when you got home, so we could go and do things and you spend time together as a family. And I quickly got disappointed with that, because that was one of my expectations, that I thought you didn't need as much sleep as you thought you needed.
Yeah.
I thought that we could get away with, you not sleeping, so you could, especially if you were off shift that next night, like you didn't want to be sleeping the entire day to where you didn't get any sleep the next night too.
Yeah, I had to figure that one out too, because otherwise I wouldn't sleep at night.
Yeah, so definitely sleep expectations were something going into marriage, that as far as the, first responder life, not knowing, first responders deal with different sleep schedules because of shifts and everything. And so there were times where you would come home and you would just go straight to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And, my job was to keep the kids quiet because I was at home with kids. So my job was to keep them quiet while you slept. So I think something else that we didn't really think about before we got married too was different traditions and how we would do different holidays. Obviously, and
it was easy early on because both of our families weren't anywhere near us.
No, and I remember our first Christmas together, at newly married, that we ended up going up to your family in New Jersey at the last minute.
Was it the last minute?
It was the last minute. Like, looking back,
glad you remember that. I don't.
Looking back, I was like, we probably should have just stayed, just the two of us. I think it was just for me, it was very like, culture shock, I guess, because I'm used to spending, holidays with my family. Even though
Mm-hmm.
my family was closer, I think they went out to Colorado that year or something
Yeah.
like that.
Well, and Christmas Eve was and is a big
Yeah,
thing
we've
with
built
your
some pretty
family.
big traditions now that they
Mm-hmm.
all live close. So I think the expectations we didn't really have, we really didn't know what those expectations were going to be. And as the kids got older, and as they came along, and travel became a 2-day thing up to see your family, and then it wasn't always guaranteed you would get off shift for
Yeah.
a holiday. So that was a definite awakening to where, hey, sometimes the holiday doesn't happen on the day that the holiday actually
Mm-hmm.
happens on.
Yep.
And that's, sometimes that can be disappointing because you feel the magic of Christmas on the 25th and Christmas Eve on the 24th, and you feel that magic between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it's like, oh, but if we celebrate on the 26th, it's not Christmas anymore, it's cleanup Christmas time. So I mean, there've definitely been some times where we had to adjust, and making sure we communicated that with each other as far as like, what was going to happen for each holiday. I think we also used your shift schedule as a reason why, a lot of times they locked down the holidays too, to where no one could take PTO.
Yeah.
So that was one of the
just to
things.
make sure there was coverage.
Right. So that was
Yeah.
one of the things. It's like, yeah, well, there goes seeing your family, because we can't take time off. So
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to have holidays. We're going to have to figure something else out.
Yep. In the ER, it was a rotation where, okay, if you work Christmas this year, you don't have to work it next year.
Yeah.
And also you would be off Thanksgiving. It was
Right.
so that was nice.
Right.
And it worked out.
Yeah.
And even I remember there was one shift one year in the ER where me and somebody else, we split Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I did the first half, they did the second half.
Yep.
So, it really worked out well. As best as it could.
Yeah. I mean, we all enter our marriages with certain expectations.
We do.
And a lot of that comes from our traditions, our history with our family, the culture we
Yes.
grew up in, what our parents' relationship looked like. I mean, I come from a military family, so a lot of times it was just me, my mom and dad, and my sister. We didn't have grandparents, whereas, coming to holidays all the time.
For me, I had 2 sets of grandparents with
you split the day. You
Yeah.
spent the day traveling, and that was a foreign I was like, you don't.
Well, and it wasn't far. We went,
No.
like 25 minutes to my mom's parents, and then we went another 20 minutes maybe to Grandma and Papa's house.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we split the day. Now the longer part of the day was always at Grandma and Papa's house. We would be there until, depending on the family party or the holiday, because in the Falzones, we did family parties almost once a month.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't quite, and it was fun. It was a good time. But yeah, it was very different upbringings around that. So
Yeah.
there was some conflict there.
Yeah.
There was some a little bit of weeping and gnashing of teeth,
Yeah.
depending on the time.
I mean, but we brought that to the table, and it was having to figure out our own, because we formed this new family unit when the two of us got married. We became our immediate family.
Yeah.
Everybody else then became the extended family, and so we needed to figure out what traditions were going to work for us, and all of that, and such. So we both brought things to the table that we had to kind of compromise on and communicate effectively about.
I think some of the changes that the expectations as far as the first responder life, it really ebbed and flowed depending on where I was working, because I worked EMS, ER, fire department, and then it was back to a different ER, and it was back to, so there were a lot of changes throughout the last 20 years with my schedule. When I was in school, it just, so
I think one of my expectations that I had to adjust for the EMS life was that you would only have to work one job at a time, like be employed at one place.
Yeah.
And for the majority of your career, you've worked a full-time and a part-time job at the same time?
Yep.
Because
At least I've either been in the ER part-time and EMS full-time, or EMS full-time, ER part-time, fire department full-time, and then I don't know if I was working.
EMS, you did EMS
I
and
did
fire
EMS
part-time.
part-time, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Flying full-time
and then ER part-time.
ER part-time. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you've worked a job and a half for the majority of your career.
Because it EMS, and
this is across the board. EMS doesn't pay.
Yeah.
First responders don't get paid what
it is
they're
improving in certain areas, but it's not. There's we could go into the weeds on why that is, but the fact of the matter is, between inflation, which affects the cost of living, it's very expensive to live. It's very expensive to live as a couple, let alone having kids. And you add that dynamic, and we live in an area where, compared to the rest of the country, it's actually pretty low. Yeah. Now, because of that, the income is also not in your upper levels of income.
Yeah.
Because the cost of living is not there. It's not like California or New Jersey where you're paying through the nose for a tank of gas. It's still expensive here, but so
But I mean, I think that ties in too with the schedule changes, because you would come off of one job, maybe have a day off, where typically if you came off of working on the ambulance, you had like 2 days off, or if you came off the helicopter, it was a 24 on 12, 24 off, something like that. We've worked all the schedules at this point.
Yeah, California 12s.
Yeah, we've worked them all. I say we, but I mean, really, it's you working this. I mean, I've lived it.
Yeah.
So
you got the other end of the stick from the schedule standpoint.
Right. Managing everything here at home to you doing your thing. So I think like the schedule changes, the last minute overtime, the expectation was that, you would get a couple days off, and then, we'd get to, do whatever we needed to do around the house, you do whatever you need to do, and then you go back to shift. But usually it was like, oh, he's got 3 days off. He's going to work the part-time job in the middle of that. So he doesn't really have 3 days off. He only has 2 days off.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's when I was off. So let's say when I was doing 312s, and I think we tried to lump them together as best as we could.
We did.
After that third 12, and it was mostly night shift. That was in the ER. When it was EMS, it was 24/48s. But basically, that first day after that 24 or that night shift, that last shift of the 312, I had expected to just take a breath and get some rest. However, because of the dynamic of our home with kids and just we were increasingly getting busy, I didn't always get that. No. And that was a point of frustration in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, and we didn't communicate that well to each other. No, we didn't. Too. I mean, I will tell you this. When we both ended up getting smartphones and could do calendar invites that included everybody. Now that our teenagers have email addresses, I mean, I put everything on the family calendar and invite everybody to it, whether it relates to them or not, so they know what's going on.
Visibility.
Just because that means you can look ahead on your days off and you can see what's scheduled, what appointments are going on, who needs to get where in different places, especially since I work full time now and I'm not home full time. And
that's a good takeaway for this part of the episode, is that if you're not on the same calendar, or maybe you do have different calendars, you got to get it together.
Yeah.
You have to be on the same, you're not going to be on the same page if you're not on the same calendar.
Right. And something else that worked really well for us in being, reminding each other to communicate things to each other. So we didn't have, these expectations sitting out here in left field that we haven't said to one another was like if someone else asked us to do something, it wasn't an immediate yes. It was a let me check with Anthony or let me check with Dayna, because that way we communicate. And if he's already thinking about something else going on that he needs to talk to me about, and I'm making plans over here on the same time that he's thinking, plans, we're going to have, mixed matched expectations. I'm expecting to be able to have time to go out and grab coffee with a friend, whereas you're expecting that we can go, take the kids down to Chattanooga or something. And so, having that time to communicate, it's really important to communicate. I mean, I think that's the basis for everything we end up talking about on podcasts.
That's a big part
I feel like we over communicate sometimes just because
we can, and that can make things
that, you can go to the far extreme where you talk something to death that you're just so fed up of talking about it that you just don't know where to go from there.
Yeah.
But
with saying, hey, let me check with my spouse, there's a lot of freedom in that, because especially if it's something that's like, and I'm not saying this to get out of whatever it is, but having the ability to say, well, let me check with them, and then if they say no and here's why.
And it's not like we're controlling each other.
No, and that's
it's not like a no, you can't go do that.
It's a no, we have these other things going on, and especially nowadays where there's so many different things on the schedule.
Yes.
Doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, volleyball games, soccer. I mean, during the school year, it can be.
We have one in college who has college classes that she goes to, and we have
a lot of things going on. So to make sure we're not stepping on each other's toes, there's freedom in saying, hey, let me find out from my spouse. And if the person won't take that as, if they won't hold on and be like, well, then it's a no.
Well, and I had someone tell me early on, a few years into our marriage, that she always got fed up with me saying how, that I needed to check with you on things, because she felt like I was throwing the fact, she was single at the time. She felt like I was throwing the fact that I was married into her face. And I was like, no, it has absolutely nothing to do with that. It's just that I need to make sure that I'm not missing something on our schedule, and I can talk to him so we can communicate, so he knows what's going on and is not left in the dark.
Yep.
And vice versa.
I don't like being left in the dark unless I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
Then leave me in the dark.
Yep. I mean, so, we did a lot of these things. We expected, to have a lot. You get married because you want to spend time together. You want to spend you want to build a life together. So there's times that, I felt early on, we spent less time together married than we did dating. And we lived long distance for, what? 9-10
months?
Yeah.
Maybe
like 6 months. You moved down.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
right.
like
you're
six-ish months.
Yep.
Yeah. So, we had these expectations that, we'd be able to spend all this extra time together, have weekends together, have, dinner every night together, because that's how I grew up. And,
Well, and our first year of marriage, when I was working construction,
it worked out that way.
I was Monday through Thursday or Friday, so we did
have that first.
We had dinner every night together.
Yeah.
It was a consistent schedule, and I don't think I really went anywhere outside of this, a 30-mile radius to go to work. So we got used to that before I actually got heavily into the career field. One of the other things, because this is a big one, we talked about the schedule changes, missed holiday shift, the shifts themselves, but fatigue. We've kind of touched on the sleep. That's something that conversation needs to happen early on, and there's a lot of understanding that has to happen on the spouse who's at home for your spouse who is the first responder. Maybe you both are, and if you both are, then you need to have a lot of grace for each other, because your fatigue is not going to be their fatigue.
Yeah.
And you may think, well, I had a rough shift and did this, and then I worked in the ER. And it's not a competition.
At some point it came to be a competition because, you were like, well, I had a rough shift. I had to do this, and this with patients, and I had to go drive all the way to Nashville and come back at 3 a.m. in the morning in the ambulance. And I'm like, I stayed up with a screaming baby all night. Excuse me, I'm tired too.
And that's you can't.
You
It's
can't
not a competition.
It's not a competition.
It's not a
You can't
competition.
compete.
But the biggest thing as far as the first responder is concerned is there's fatigue that we're going to sustain that you're not going to understand.
Right.
And that's when we talk about when you have the death of a patient, whether it's a child or adult. If it's a child, it's even more. But that does things to your mental state, your body. There's a lot of things that cause fatigue. Not being able to eat and drink, fluids. I mean, in the ambulance, if you're running in a busy 911 system, your guaranteed meals are before shift and after shift.
Yeah.
They do not happen on shift. Same thing if you work in a busy level 1 trauma center or just a busy hospital. Even the critical access facilities where it's you and a few nurses, maybe a doctor, and you get slammed. Bathroom breaks are a premium. That's unfortunately the nature of what we do.
Yeah.
That causes fatigue in ways that most other jobs do not.
Mm-hmm.
So having the understanding that you're not going to be able to understand, but giving that grace and that permission to be like, hey, how can I help you recover
right
during the off time is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not giving permission for that first responders to go to the bar or whatever and shirk responsibilities at home. But it is something to where it's a communication point of, I need some time to breathe for a minute.
And and sometimes it also means that you don't attend family events because you're exhausted and you just need time at home, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. I mean,
yep.
Is family going to be disappointed? Extended family going to be disappointed if you don't show up? Yeah, they probably are. But the other fact of the matter is you have to protect your first responder needing rest. And, there are times that I've gone to family events without you and you've been home sleeping mm-hmm. because you needed to.
Yeah, there's been a few of those.
There's been a few.
And it worked out.
I mean, it worked out. There's been a few Christmases where, you came, we drove separately mm-hmm. over to my parents' house to open presents over there. Yeah. We opened presents and then you had to go home to sleep to be able to work that night. So, I mean, there's been a few Thanksgivings like that too. Mm-hmm. You have to be accommodating, and family might not always understand that because they don't live the first responder life on a regular basis. And so, helping them to understand that, this is what life looks like for us, and, that it's okay to say no to things and not have to give an explanation.
Yep.
That was the one. I'm very much a people pleaser, and I will
and a planner,
and I will overextend myself and not tell myself no. And it's always been really helpful for me to be able to bounce things off of you, and you to say, hey, I think you've overextended yourself, and you need to say no to this mm-hmm. one.
Yeah.
So,
and that's continuing with the overextension. This happens on the work side, and sometimes you don't get a vote. I've worked between the ER and even the helicopter where, because we were so short-staffed, overtime was mandated.
Yep.
We had to work an extra 12-hour shift or whatever the arrangement was, and you could not do that. You get written up, and there's
even
some
more
systems.
Recently we had that happen with it. You were off call, man. You were not on call that weekend, and it was an all hands on deck situation that you just could not go on. It would not look good if you didn't go. I mean, we had that conversation, and let me tell you, I did not handle this well at all.
You did not.
I did not handle it
all.
Well at all. Usually I can handle things pretty well. Usually I have my little, I'm going to be upset, pitch a fit about this. Then I'm going to be okay and move on. But this one was one of those situations where it was like, there was a lot of unknowns around it.
And that added to
the stress, that added to the fear, that added to the, okay.
It amplified what had there not been a certain dynamic to that situation, I think the tone would have been different. It would have been
Right.
received differently.
Because
And it would have,
we've done last minute trips
we have.
before where you got
have.
24 hours notice and you had to fly overseas.
How about 6 hours notice?
Oh yeah, 6 hours
6
notice.
hours notice.
We've done that before.
Yeah.
Like, and I remember even one thing where you guys were like, this is happening.
Yep.
And we were scrambling around the house because you really had like 2 hours to get ready. That trip ended up not happening. It ended up getting canceled.
That's right. I remember that.
I mean, but we're scrambling around the house to get everything together because you had nothing packed and ready to go. I think this is when you were
I wasn't even on call.
I don't even know, you weren't on call, and you weren't, I don't think you were full-time at the time. I think you were still part-time at the time with your company now. And so, but I remember like something big was going on, and they were like, yeah, we have to go and do this. We're going to go, we're sending, a bunch of people over.
All hands on deck.
And then it's like, never mind. I'm like, oh, what did I do? I did all of this.
Yeah.
But, the expectation at that, this most recent one was that I was very excited that you were off call that weekend because it was our middle child's 15th birthday. It was Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah.
It was, we have a town strawberry festival that is absolutely amazing. It's one of my favorite times.
Tennessee Strawberry Festival.
The Tennessee Strawberry Festival. So if you're ever in our neck of the woods,
the
beginning
second week of May.
Yeah, about the second. Well, usually first full week of May. Come check out the Tennessee Strawberry Festival. And it was ballet recital weekend.
Yep. Which I did make it to the dress rehearsal.
You made the dress rehearsal,
so
that was good. You did get to see the dress rehearsal before you left. But yeah, it was just like this perfect storm of things that I did not handle well at all. I mean, deep down, as I'm having my massive pitch-a-fit situation going on, I knew I was going to be okay and that I would be fine. The tone was a little...
I knew you were going to be okay. That's why I wasn't upset.
I know. You weren't upset at all. He was a calm, cool...
Which made you more upset.
It made me so mad. I was like, can't you be angry with me, please? I was so mad that, again, my expectation was if I'm going to be angry about this, I need you to be angry too, please. Like, stop standing there like a cool cucumber handling me, just saying, yelling at you.
You are not going to enjoy this, sir.
Oh, I know. I kept saying, you are not allowed to enjoy this trip. No smiles on this trip. I don't want any pretty pictures from any place because he had to go someplace first before going on the mission. And so I was like, I don't want any, like, you better. So he kept sending me, when he could, grumpy pictures, like of him frowning in the pretty places.
I really wasn't frowning. It was fake frowning.
It was fake frowning, but still, like, it was that expectation that, I expected, because we'd been planning for this weekend all year long. We knew it was coming.
In May, with all the things that she said, that is the busiest time of year for our family. It's not Christmas. It's not Thanksgiving. It's no other time. Even with all the sports activities and everything else. In May. Because everything is happening in like 4 days.
4 or 5 days.
Yeah. Between the Strawberry Festival, ballet recital, birthdays, Mother's Day, typically.
Yeah.
And we had family out here from Colorado, and they had been planning that trip for months. So that, I got to see them a little bit, which was nice. So there was a lot going on. We had a lot of our, our personal expectations in that week.
Yep.
And then when all that, when the mission came about, that was a tough one to deal with.
It was really tough. It was not, I do really, really well to mask my emotions, especially around extended family. Like, I put a smile on my face. I'm good. We're good. Everything's good. Like, even if it's absolute chaos inside our house while he's gone, we're good. Not that I don't ask for help. I do. There are things that I have asked for help for, but I do a very good job, handling when he is gone for an extended period of time. But this weekend, I was so disappointed. The kids were so disappointed. Like, it just was one of those.
And I think that it was contagious. The disappointment was contagious.
The disappointment was contagious.
So the aftermath is everything went well on the mission.
He got home safe. He was fine.
Yeah, and it was, we picked up the pieces.
We did.
Dusted ourselves off. I still thoroughly enjoy where I work. It is part of the job.
It is.
It really is.
Well, and we've had people ask, and I'm sure anybody in as a first responder has had someone ask this question of them in their career field. It's like, why don't you just find another job?
Yeah.
And it's like,
the answer is, well, because I enjoy what I do.
Yeah, deep down, I am super proud of what he does. Like I'm so proud of.
Deep down, I got to dig for it.
He knows I'm proud of him, but beyond deep down. But I am super proud of what he does, and we don't feel called to find another job. Like we just don't feel that calling that, the end of this career field is in sight. Our I'm sure God has called us both to this career field. You two being the first responder, me to being the first responder spouse, and I think we've found something here in that, hopefully to help other first responder families thrive better than we did early on, because we didn't. We didn't. We've not ever.
We struggled.
We
in a
really
lot of ways,
struggled, and
it's only by the grace of God that we're still married. A, and B, that I'm still in the career field.
Yeah. Because
there were a lot of points. I remember being in medical school where I just wanted to quit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just because of school. It was because of the career. And I had gotten burnt out and everything, and that's where the motivated medic kind of came out of that experience. Yeah. But no, it's learning how, and that's all part of what these podcasts are about, is learning how to not survive but thrive in this career field with a family. And it's not dragging them along and kicking and screaming, and that's why we're talking about the expectations.
Yeah, because we not only have we had to manage our own expectations.
Yep.
We've had to manage their expectations and parenting. Like, know,
I think that's probably the longest. The expectation that's taken the longest is with the kids.
Yeah.
Especially with the changes in going from a helicopter to.
If you think about it, their minds are still developed. Their brains are still developing. Oh, yeah. They're still growing. They're still learning. They don't always understand why dad can't show up to something, especially when they're little. Our older girls, with you being gone, on deployments and stuff now, I don't know, if I were to look back, I don't know if our three older girls, if you had been with the company that you are with now, when they were little, if that would have worked out well for them, just because
I don't know that it would have.
I don't think it would have.
Yeah.
Because we've even seen with our youngest, she when you first started doing regular deployments, she was itty bitty. So she didn't really know when you were gone. Now she recognizes when you're gone. And it's like when she,
I remember the first deployment where she figured it out.
She figured it out. I don't want you to go.
Yeah, she realized what was happening, and man, that was tough.
Yeah,
that was really, really tough. It wasn't last year. I think it was the year before last. Yeah, and it was when I was gone in October.
Yeah,
and that, thankfully, it wasn't the Guam deployment, because I was gone for a while.
Yeah, that was the longest deployment yet. But I think our we have our expectations of parenting, because that was another thing that was an expectation that I had that I don't think I communicated well when we were new parents, new in the career field, that I just expected you to easily jump back into civilian life on your days off.
Yeah.
As opposed to, being the first responder on shift. I thought my expectation was you would be able to easily transition, and that wasn't always the case. 99% of the time it wasn't the case.
And a bit of that was driven by fatigue. But part of that was also my priorities were skewed.
Oh, yeah, we put your career first.
Yeah.
Over anything else. Our marriage suffered because we put your career.
Yep.
We both put your career first. Our goal was to get you to, you wanted to be a flight medic, so we did everything we could
to push me in that direction.
To push you in that direction.
And it ended up basically putting you and the kids on the back burner.
Yep.
While my career was front and center.
Yep.
And it was backwards.
Yeah. And it did, I mean, it came crashing down at one point to where, we didn't know which direction things were going to go.
Yeah.
I mean, your career was doing great, but our relationship was definitely not where it is now.
And that really made things worse when it was like, well, I was expecting you to be helpful or home or,
yeah.
There were a lot of expectations that were not unrealistic,
mm-hmm.
that just weren't being met.
Right. And then, the expectation of jumping in and doing things immediately around
mm-hmm.
the house and being available for the kids. And
it's
always, I equate it now to when you come back from deployment, it always takes you, like, we get so used to doing life without you when you're on deployment. It takes us all a few days, depending on how long he's been gone. I mean, if he's going to be gone for
I'm just going to have to sit
weeks,
on the couch and wait for them to realize, oh, he's home. He can do these things.
Yes. So, I mean, what was it? One of the times you were chilling out on the couch and I grabbed your drill and I walked past and you're like, what is going on? No. And I'm like, oh, I forgot you're here and could help me with this project.
Yeah, like, wait, what project?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
So, I mean, it takes a couple days to reacclimate to being a family again. But we also had to take that time, which is harder to do when you're on a 24/48.
Mm-hmm.
You get used to doing things for 24 hours, me and the kids, and then you're home for 48 hours. And you're like, we're still in our routine here.
It's like a much quicker turnaround.
It's a quicker turnaround. How do you fit into our current routine that's going to stay the same because we needed consistency for the kids?
Yeah.
So we had to have sit down conversations. Okay, this is my expectation when you do come off shift. You're going to get the time that you need to rest or whatever. But then, that afternoon, evening after you've rested, it's, pedal to the metal and we got things to do.
And a lot of these expectations, yes, they need to be discussed and talked about, but a lot of them are driven by just the basic responsibilities that I have here as a husband and
mm-hmm.
a father, that I should be, carrying the full weight of.
Right.
And I think I got that wrong for quite a few years, to where I was shirking my responsibilities. Mm-hmm. Just because I was being lazy, B, because I was misguided, and just I was all caught up with the career. I really was.
You were being selfish too.
Yeah, I mean, that was the overarching thing.
I'm the one that's first. I'm the first responder. I need to, have this, and that. Not that he was demanding. He wasn't demanding. It's just the expectation that when he comes home, he's going to get the rest he needs. He's going to get the downtime. He's going to get the time in his workshop if he wants time in his workshop. Stuff like that.
I wanted more than just what I really absolutely needed to have. It wasn't wrong to go out to my workshop or go out with a couple of friends, but I was doing that ahead of taking care of our home.
Right.
And that's where it was wrong.
And that's where, the kids kind of felt left out, and that, there were tears and, pieces to pick up there as well. They had the expectation that dad was going to be around
mm-hmm.
For them to play with, because I hadn't seen him in 24 hours or sometimes 48 hours, because he did do 48s.
And that's something else to add in here is, with the parenting expectations, is even though, you're gone, you need that time, to recover, your family still needs you.
Mm-hmm.
And those moments you're not going to get back. The moments when they're little, you're not going to get back. And it's not to make you feel guilty of, oh, well, I'm going to be gone 24 hours. No, you do the work. Do the 24-hour shift. When you come home, be home.
Yeah, be home, be present.
Don't be scrolling, especially, we didn't have this as much early on in the career because we didn't have the latest and greatest smartphones for a while. But now your kids are competing with your phone
mm-hmm.
in many situations.
Yep.
So you need to have some kind of a routine that does not include the phone. It includes, okay, come home, get the rest that you need so you can think logically and interact with your family without being frustrated or mad or whatever it is that you need to do constructively. that gets you to where you're being present with your family, because they've been without you for 24 plus hours, or if you're doing 48s, 4896s, like our local fire department, they're gone for 2 days,
Yeah.
and then they're home for 5,
Right.
or was it 4?
Yeah.
Something like, yeah.
Somewhere around there.
My math is not mathing, but they're gone for an extended period of time. So when they're home, okay, yeah, you might have to check some emails or whatnot that are work related or of significant importance. But you need to, just like when we triage patients, you need to triage, okay, what's the level of importance for this right now? Because my daughter's asking me to sit on the floor and play Legos with her right now. And then I have a work email about a certification that expires in 6 months. Which one's really important?
Yeah.
So the work email can wait for a minute, because
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to let work affect your parenting
Yeah.
either, because it can't. I mean, you can, and we've dealt with this before, where you've had a really rough shift, and you know you didn't communicate that to me, and you just blew off steam, and the kids got in the middle of that steam getting blown off.
Yeah.
And not in a bad way, just like, he got frustrated about something and they got caught in the middle of his frustration.
Yeah.
I don't want you to think that he's ever done anything to our kids, because he's not. I'm not talking about any physical violence or emotional or anything like that, traumas. I'm talking just, regular kids not understanding, the frustrations of the career field, the stress of the job, and how, if they're not doing, obeying immediately, we've both done that. We've gotten frustrated very easily. So you don't want the job to affect the parenting in a negative way, because your kids are watching everything that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where our expectations had to change and evolve for, it was one of those, you had to communicate that, at the end of the shift, that you had a rough shift, you needed some time. So that let me know that I still needed to solo parent to a certain extent, so you could have the recovery time that you needed, so you could be the best parent available to our kids at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to change those expectations when it came to how we handled parenting in the midst of this career field.
Yeah.
So what have we learned?
Well, I know for me, a big part of it was communicating what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said early on, I didn't know.
Right.
And a lot of it was because
there's lack of experience.
Well, like in EMT or in paramedic school, this stuff wasn't brought up.
No.
And this is actually a pretty significant part of being in this field, is communicating with your family. The only communication that I was told to have with my family when I was in medic school was, okay, everybody, go out and mow the lawn, and then after you take your shower, take your dirty t-shirt that you had mowing the lawn, put it by the front door, so when you come home, your dog knows that you're not a stranger. It doesn't bite you. That's the only... It was, yeah. He was joking around, but the fact of the matter was, his point was, you're not going to be home for the next year.
And as a first responder, you're the one that gets all the training for your career field. Yeah. There's no spouse class on. No,
it's not like it's not like in the military, where you have a support system.
There's not necessarily a built-in support system.
Correct.
I didn't get together with other first responder families.
No,
I have a couple friends that their husbands are first responders, whether it's law enforcement or fire. But I mean, mm-hmm. there was never any real strong support system for first responders like there is with military families.
Yeah. So that was a big thing, was me learning that I needed to communicate not only what I needed in recovering and everything else as far as fatigue, mm-hmm. rest, so on and so forth, but also communicating what I did.
Yeah.
I think there's a healthy majority of our of the people in our field, in my field, that they're married to people and their spouse doesn't really know all of what they do.
No.
And that, they'll garner what they can from TV shows and whatnot, which is not accurate.
Well, I mean, I think what was the time where I was very surprised that you could intubate someone?
Mm-hmm.
You were like, I was like, you can do that. And he's like, yeah, I know how to do that. I've intubated someone before. Well, lots of people before. So
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I didn't know. Like, my thought is just like emergency car accident, get them to the hospital, not having to actually
Do stuff.
Yeah. Because that's what's shown on TV.
Yeah. And so that was a big fail on my part. So, and it goes back to in the last episode where we talked about I compartmentalized.
Mm-hmm.
I left work at work, and which I didn't. I still brought home the stress, but I didn't educate my family on what I did.
Yeah.
And the things that I the things that I get to do. The ways that I can help my patients.
Yeah.
So it's, and not that I'm bringing home any stories and violating HIPAA. That's not what I'm about. But sharing with them what goes on in my job, as far as, what do I do?
Yeah. If he was up all night, if he had a rough call, or if it was a rough, busy ER, communicating that, like, understanding that we have to manage our own expectations as the adults. But we also have to manage our kids' expectations. And, that's harder. That tugs at your heartstrings a little bit more, because, I don't necessarily like breaking bad news to my kids and saying, hey, I'm sorry, Dad's not going to make it to this event.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really important to them that their parents show up. They don't care anybody else who shows up. Sometimes it's just mom and dad are there. That's what's important to them.
Yep.
And there've been times where definitely recently where it's been, I'm sorry, I have to go and do work.
Yeah.
Because people need help.
Yeah.
And managing the expectations of the kids and help managing the disappointment, and and sometimes that's. And we try to do this when he's on call, especially. And now I'm learning we actually have to sit down and do it when he's not on call too,
Mm-hmm.
and just preface that there is a possibility he might get a last minute thing where he has to go, and it's
even though
he's not supposed to go, So hopefully those are few and far between.
And they are.
They typically are. But usually on the call week, we do our best not to plan anything on the call week.
No, it's
and we set that expectation with the kids too, of, hey, Dad's on call this week. They're besides school and regular activities, which some of them can get themselves to those regular activities now,
thankfully,
that there's nothing else going on. No doctor's visits, no, like we really have fine-tuned the schedule, so that there's, we're managing their expectations, so they're aware, okay, soccer practice, Dad might not be at soccer practice. My game on Saturday.
I'm the coach.
Yeah. Dad might not be at the game on Saturday if he catches a flight. Like, trying to, there's always going to be disappointment. There, that's something that is unavoidable. They're going to be disappointed. I'm going to be disappointed. But hopefully we're training them how to manage that disappointment and, manage the expectation while, it's good to have expectations. We also have to, voice set expectations and not just think about those expectations in our head, and help teach our kids how to manage the expectations of this career field. Because also, we don't know if any of our kids are going to grow up and join this career field too. We also don't know if they're going to marry into this career field. Yeah. That is always a possibility. So hopefully the experiences that we're giving them and the lessons and things that we're teaching them now, they're going to be able to take and do better with their marriages down the road than we did starting out with our marriage.
Yeah.
It's also about giving each other grace. We have to extend grace. We've been given grace, so we need to extend grace. And sometimes that means taking a deep breath, thinking before you speak, remembering that not everything needs to be spoken too. Sometimes you just need to keep those thoughts inside your head for a while and realize, I'm glad I didn't let that come out and say that, because that would have been hurtful. Because there have definitely been times where we've been so caught in our own expectations of each other in this career field that we've used it as ammunition against each other, and we've said things that we wish we hadn't have said. I mean, I know what buttons to push on you to set you off, and you know what buttons to push on me to get me, upset. And I learned real quick, as someone who did not come from an Italian family that is very loud and boisterous, that I needed to have a little bit of a voice
Yep.
and defend myself a
Not
little
such a
bit.
quiet church mouse anymore.
I couldn't be quiet, and so I learned really quick that I needed to speak up and say things. But sometimes I don't always.
Now
think.
she's some kind of independent woman or something like that.
Sometimes, but it also means sometimes I don't. It sometimes means the words come out faster than my.
They skip your filter.
They skip my filter, and and there have been times where I'm like, oh, I need to bring that back in. I am so sorry. That meant to stay inside my head, not come out at you. So, there are times where I've had to eat the words that I've said and apologize.
A little humble pie goes a long way.
Yeah. But giving each other grace, having some patience. I am not the most patient person.
Nope.
So, there were times where I was watching the clock to the minute. He said I could wake him up at 2:00. Okay, I'm going to wake him up at 2:00.
She wouldn't wake me up at 2:00. She'd wake me up at 1:55. And it drove me nuts, because I would set an alarm for when I need to wake up. And I'm like, I had 5 more minutes.
I know. I was so mean.
It drove me nuts.
I'm so mean. So, yeah. I mean, and something else that I think we both have learned was, don't assume.
Nope. We all know what assuming does.
Yeah. Ask. If there's something that that's not making sense, or there's no clarity on, just ask. It's okay to ask.
And don't put somebody down for asking a question. That's something that it drives me nuts in our career field, because there's those providers out there that'll be like, that's a stupid question. It's like, okay. And there's also those providers that do legitimately ask a stupid question just because they can.
Right.
So there's both sides of it, but don't put your spouse down for asking and inquiring, because that's them wanting to get information so they can, to help them understand. And that's my job, is to help Dayna understand whatever it is, whether it's a change in the schedule, or something is going on with training. Like, I've got some training coming up in the fall, and we're trying to coordinate, okay, what's the schedule on those days, so I can, commit to the training. So there's a lot of this, planning. And that's another thing. The expectation of, well, I know about this for work, but I'm not saying anything about it. And then 2 weeks or 1 week before it happens, oh, hey, I've got this. That's going back to the calendar of put in the calendar. But as soon as you know about something, talk about it.
Yeah.
Don't assume that, it's going to be okay. It's going to work itself out.
Right.
So you need to ask about, hey, can I, is this going to be good? Or if it's not a matter of asking, it's a mandated, training, you have to be there kind of thing. As soon as you know, let them know. Be very clear on what you have to do as part of your job.
Yeah, because it's those, especially when you have something that comes up, and I have maybe this idea in my head that I haven't talked to you about, is something that I'm thinking, oh, this could be really fun to do.
Like knocking down another wall.
Well, that's your idea.
This
so
first.
it was my first. Anyways, it's those, if it's brewing as one of those, oh, I'm expecting that we're going to be able to do this because he's off on these days, and then to come to find out he has training.
Yep.
It's those unspoken expectations that often lead to those unnecessary disappointments. So if you're not communicating those expectations that you have for each other, or for whatever's going on in your life, you're going to be
you're setting yourself up for failure.
You're setting yourself up to be disappointed. So it's important to talk, listen. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth because he wants us to listen twice. And ask, if you don't know or don't understand, what the other person is saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then realizing that sometimes you have to let go of some of your expectations because they really are unrealistic. It is really unrealistic of me to think that you're going to be home for every single holiday or every
Or
single
that you can
birthday.
make plans right after.
Or I can make plans right after you come off shift. Or
guaranteed to get a call.
oh yeah. Or like right now you're on a rotating schedule flight wise. So when he's on call, there's 4 different teams or 3 different teams right now.
It varies.
It varies. But typically it's 4 different
at least
teams.
3, but
Typically,
4.
yeah. So the first team is not, team number 1 is not always team number 1 each week of the flight schedule. So it's usually whoever left off the flight last, like flew last.
Yep.
The next team up is the one that flies. So, for example, he came off shift this past week and he was the last one to fly. So currently, my expectation is that when he goes to work next Monday, he will not be the first one up in line to fly. However, this also all depends on if there's anybody on PTO. So I have to loosely hold that expectation because it is a real possibility that he might actually be the first one up to fly, even though he was the last one to fly the last week, because that has happened before. So, sometimes you have to let go of those expectations or hold them very loosely, but you still have to communicate them to each other.
There's only so much that you can control in this career.
Yeah.
And there are some people that their family situation, you need to take a hard look and see, is this career field really beneficial for you? Is it to a detriment that you're still in it to your family? Because there are those situations, and it's not everybody, but there are those situations to where it's harming your family to stay in it.
Right.
So that is something to evaluate. Again, I don't think it's the vast majority. I think it's a small percentage. But just because you're in the career field doesn't mean that this is how it should be.
Right.
For however long.
So as we wrap up this week's episode, we want to kind of challenge our listeners this week as far as, communicating, making sure you're communicating with your spouse or significant other. Ask them, is there an expectation that you've had of me that you've never actually told me? We're actually going to do this right now. We're going to put each other on the spot here. Is there an expectation that you've had of me and vice versa that you've never actually told me? We communicate a lot pretty well. So I'm trying to think if there's an expectation that I have of you that I've never told you.
I don't know. There might be, but just not off the top of my head.
I know. I can't think of anything, which is bad. I feel like that's bad. Our listeners are going to be doing this, and I haven't thought of an expectation. Is there an expectation that I've had of you?
Well.
Oh, here. This one's fun. This one's fun.
Oh boy.
I mean, I think maybe you know this one, probably, because I've had to do some of the boy jobs when you're gone.
My goodness.
So my expectation has always been that you would handle all of the boy jobs. And by boy jobs, I mean taking out the trash, mowing the lawn, putting gas in the car. I don't like filling my gas tank. Like, there should be an alarm that goes from my gas tank directly to your phone to let you know that Dayna needs gas in her car.
And I do try to put it in there if I'm,
I mean, not that that's not an expectation that I've never told you. I think you kind of knew that one already.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anything that an expectation I've had that I've never told you. We're
not going to wait the rest of the episode.
I know. It's late. We record when the kids are all kind of in bed and doing their own thing, so it's late at night for us, and it's been a long day. So
well, once you do share that, if there is an expectation that you've had of your spouse that you never actually told them, listen. Don't become defensive. Listen.
explain, like maybe explain why behind the expectation. Like not, you know, obviously if it's an unrealistic expectation, then, you know, be understanding of them, but, you know, also listen, you know, as you're hearing this expectation that you never realized that your spouse had of you. Listen, take it in. Don't, you know, get on the defensive of, oh my gosh, I can't believe you expect that of me and everything. So, but anyways, you know, just our goal for you guys, our listeners, is that at the end of the day, you would learn to be better managers of the expectations that you have and better communicators within your marriage, because it's in this career field, it's so important to be as communicative as possible. And, you know, sometimes, like I've said, you have to let go of some of those expectations that you have of each other. Not that we shouldn't hold each other to a high standard. I 100% believe we need to hold each other to a high standard. But, you know, that you know, there are times for rest. There are times for just to be present with family. There are times to, you know, where he has to focus solely on the job and he can't worry about what's going on at home. So, and I can't have the expectation that while he's on a, you know, a mission, that he's thinking about, well, did Dayna do this? Did Dayna do that? Or, you know, what's going on with the kids? He has to 100% be focused on that mission, which is why I have to be able to make sure that I can handle things here at the home front. So, again, I hope this has been helpful to anyone who is especially new in this field, because this was something that we didn't learn early on. It took us a while to learn with managing expectations. But
and I think something to speak to is, if you don't have a good support system, maybe you don't have either family that's nearby, or just a good family environment that you're coming from, and you're married, whether it's newly married or what have you, you've been married for a while, start searching for those individuals, and maybe you already know some that will be a good listening ear, not to take the place of your spouse, but somebody who can help support you and your family while you do this career field. It's, you know, like I said, you know, we don't want you to survive. We want you to thrive in this field, because there's a lot of good things to it. Can you get burned out? Oh, extremely easily, very easily. That is not hard to do. What is hard to do is to actually be able to do the career and enjoy it amidst all the challenges that we face within emergency services, fire, EMS, law enforcement. We got a lot of things to face that are not pretty. But for those of us that really do get to, we really do enjoy this. We understand it's hard work, and we're willing to put that in. So, but have that support system, and that will help you in learning how to manage your expectations.
And we have some really cool things coming down the road with some tools that we're hoping will help. So stay tuned for some exciting things coming from us as in this podcast, not just the podcast, but just some outside resources to hopefully help you, again, thrive as a first responder family. But until next time,
this is
Responding Together.
Thanks for listening. If today's episode encouraged you, we'd love for you to follow the podcast, leave us a review, and share this episode with another first responder family. Then come join the conversation on Facebook and Instagram by searching Responding Together Podcast. For more information, you can email respondingtogetherpodcast@gmail.com.